rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events, this is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Well, yeah, what a bunch of stuff that I have for you this evening. A lot of it, of course, has to deal with the fact that the left is down, but not out. They are essentially still putting up a pretty good fight, and at least that's what they think. We'll have to see as time goes on whether or not they are actually effective at what is going on, whether or not the American people will side with them again or stay on the side of the conservatives and the good that is being done by the conservatives. So, anyway, oh gosh, my news couldn't get Rumble to work. So she's over on Facebook tonight. All right, well, let's get some things started off. Tonight, I am drinking from the newly opened bottle of Knob Creek. Told you I had another one sitting on the shelf, and there it is. Knob Creek, and I'm drinking it out of the American Perspective glass. Yes, this was a fantastic gift by my Whiskey Warrior P1s that are out there. They sent this to me not too long ago, and I am enjoying every minute of it. And yes, there is the rocks in the bottom. It takes stones to drink with whiskey. Yes. Good stuff, Knob Creek. All right. Let's go ahead and get things kicked off. Tonight, we have U.S. Abby Girl. I don't know. Is she in the chat? I haven't seen her, I don't think. But U.S. Abby Girl is on tap for tonight's Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mine, please stand. Remove your hat if you're wearing one. And follow along with U.S. Abby Girl as she recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And, of course, I thank U.S. Abby Girl for getting us that wonderful rendition of the pledge. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself performing the pledge in your style and take that audio or video file, whatever kind of file, attach it to an email and send it off to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. And I will get you into the rotation as quickly as I can. All right. Tonight's sponsor is the Institute on the Constitution. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission, and that is to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following three key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on a most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.americanperspective.online, to sign up. And while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.americanperspective.online to get great content, to learn about our historical founding, and support the show in the process. That's iotc.americanperspective.online. Or, if you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to constitution.americanperspective.online. Check this thing out. It's got 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather wrapped around pages that are water and tear resistant. And look at that binding. No cheap glue here, folks. They've stitched it all the way through the leather and the pages. It's got a 100-year warranty against materials and workmanship's defects, such that if you have a problem with it, you can send it back to the manufacturer and they will either fix it or replace it for free. It has been buddy tested, buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved, and my youngest whiskey warrior has confirmed that the contents contained within can help you study for your civics badge in Scouts. Go to constitution.americanperspective.online. Get your copy today. And don't forget to check out the rest of the IOTC's offerings. Pick yourself up some good books and things like that. They've got some great information there. Obviously, it will support the show if you use my links to go get them. And as always, I thank them for allowing me to be a brand affiliate. All right. So, we have our first segment, which is, of course, a fan favorite. Here is tonight's On This Day in American History. And, of course, for On This Day in American History, we read from the American Patriots Almanac, written by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb, chock full with all kinds of information, factoids, and wonderful things with regards to our fantastic country that we call home. Tonight is March 29th. Wow, we're already almost done with March. March 29th. Do with less so they'll have enough. On March 29th, 1943, the U.S. government began requiring Americans to ration fat, meat, and cheese as part of a national program to help win World War II. It was just one in a long series of sacrifices made on the home front. War could not be won, President Franklin D. Roosevelt stressed, war could be won, Roosevelt stressed, if all Americans shared in the effort. During his second wartime fireside chat, he said that although not everyone could fight overseas, there was, quote, one front and one battle where everyone in the United States, every man, woman, and child, is in action. That front is right here at home in our daily tasks. That meant, in part, a rationing program to help save scarce goods for the military and distribute available items fairly. The list of rationed goods included everything from sugar, canned food, and fat. The latter was used in the manufacture of explosives, to tires, bicycles, and gasoline. Each item was assigned a price in points, and Americans were given books of ration stamps with which to buy things. Yes, you can buy rationed shoes from Sears by mail, read a wartime Sears catalog. Simply detach War Ration Stamp number 17 from your War Ration Book number 1, Sugar and Coffee Book, and pin it to your order. Some things, such as new cars and appliances, were simply not available because factories were busy churning out tanks, planes, and bombs. People walked instead of driving and used corn syrup in place of sugar. Women went without nylon stockings. Men wore victory suits that used less cloth. And children learned to do without new toys. Few complained. They remembered the soldiers who were making the real sacrifice. Do less so they'll have enough, a poster from the Office of War Information urged. And Americans did. That is today's On This Day in American History. Incredible story of sacrifice. Something, of course, that none of these generations, not even my generation, and I'm, getting up there, not even my generation really understands the sacrifices that are needed in order to do what must be done in wartime. And unfortunately, we haven't found that out. So there you go. All right. Let's go ahead and kick things off with a bit of a funny. Well, at least I think it's funny. The Daily Wire has this. Trump apparently was asked in an impromptu press conference in the Oval Office. He does that quite a bit. I think he's, outpaced Biden in terms of being accessible to the press and the press corps. Honestly, yeah. Anyway, Trump was apparently asked the question of what is a woman? And, he asked, a reporter asked if Trump could explain what is a woman and why it's important that we understand the difference between a man and a woman. Well, folks, here is our commander-in-chief, the POTUS. Here is his answer. Take a listen.
Since Democrats seem to struggle answering this question, I wanted to ask you, what is a woman and why is it important that we understand the difference between men and women?
Well, it's sort of easy to answer for me because a woman is somebody that can have a baby under certain circumstances. She has a quality. A woman is a person who's much smarter than a man, I've always found. A woman is a person that doesn't give a man even a chance of success. And a woman's a person that in many cases has been treated very badly, because I think that what happens with this crazy issue of men being able to play in women's sports is just ridiculous and very unfair to women and very demeaning to women.
Well, there you go. That is our president's idea of what is a woman. Unlike Ketanji Brown Jackson, who couldn't even answer it when she actually was a woman. Her answer was, I'm not a biologist. Okay. And she ended up on the Supreme Court. What kind of a moron? Anyway. So Trump has understood this whole thing with regards to these idiots that are out there. So earlier this week, according to the piece here, at the Women's History Month event in the East Room of the White House, Trump pointed to the executive order he signed that the United States will only recognize two genders. Trump said, for 4 long years, we had an administration that tried to abolish the very concept of womanhood and replace it with radical gender ideology. Under the Trump administration, we're ending the Marxist war on women. He added, no matter how many surgeries you've had or chemicals you inject, if you are born with male DNA in every cell of your body, you can never become a woman. And he added that you're not going to be a woman. And then he said, and that's why last month I proudly signed a historical executive order to ban trans-identifying men from competing in women's sports. He also noted that he banned puberty blockers and sexual mutilation of minors. So, yep, there you go. There's our commander-in-chief. Yep. All right. Well, unfortunately, as good as our commander-in-chief is, we still have morons running around this country trying to make it sound like they are going to go somewhere in their political careers or elsewhere. One of those, of course, is Tampon Tim. Tampon Tim has been running around having town halls, and he apparently went to Texas this week, which I'm kind of surprised that they actually even had places. Well, I mean, let's face it, he probably only ended up going to the enclaves, such as the cities, in order to pander to the left for this. But him going there, and by the way, he went there, he went during a town hall appearance in Rosenberg, and he was with failed Senate candidate Beto O'Rourke. Boy, that's a pair. Let's just stop and take a moment and just think about and envision the truly masculine, and I use that word very facetiously, masculine traits of both Beto O'Rourke and Tim Walz. But anyway, they appeared together, I guess, and Walz, of course, railed against Republicans and even admitted that Democrats allowed the right to define the word woke. So apparently he believes that the left hasn't embraced the word woke, or hasn't embraced the concept of woke well enough, and that they need to embrace it harder. He made a comment where he said, "I'm just going to note this of a signal text chain that was going on. Could have used a little diversity, equity, and inclusion in the people who were there." Really? You think that would have made any kind of a difference there, Timmy? Anyway, he also blamed Democrats for backing off of their far left policies when confronted by public backlash. Okay. His comment was, "We got ourselves in this mess because we weren't bold enough to stand up and say, you're damn right we're proud of these policies. We're going to put them in, and we're going to execute them." Yeah. Yeah, his party lost because the American people got tired of it. In fact, the majority of the things that Trump is doing and running on and effectively implementing right now is basically what's called an 80-20, meaning that 80% of Americans agree with the policy and only 20% agree with you, Tim. But anyway, he continued by accusing Republicans of fear-mongering, saying that they're going to use fear. They're going to do whatever they can while urging the Democrat base to organize. He even dragged veterans. Yeah. Veterans into the DEI conversation, claiming that one of the groups that has benefited greatly by us understanding that diversity, equity, and inclusion and having policies around that were veterans themselves for the hiring. I'm a former veteran, and I don't think the DEI does anything for me, especially because I happen to be a white male veteran over the age of 40. And that's about as far as I'm going to go with that. Oh, I'm also Christian. Forgot that. Yeah. So DEI includes and is so diverse and so equitable that they push out anybody who is a white male Christian and happens to think conservative. Yeah, that's really good DEI there, Timmy, my boy. Anyway, not to be outdone, of course, Walz doubled down on his belief that Minnesota's very existence depends on diversity, equity, and inclusion because 70% of the state's future workforce will come from communities of color. Well, how about this, Tim? Really simply put, how about you just forget about the idea of color? How about you just pick the people who have the best skills, the are able to pass the correct tests are able to actually perform the job effectively. How about that? That's just something that, anyway, well, yeah. I mean, considering the fact that Americans, they're only interested in a good economy, functioning border, safety in their homes, and a government that doesn't over obsess over skin color or gender pronouns and pretty much kind of stays out of their lives and lets them live their life appropriately. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. I just, the thing that I'm concerned about though is that people are showing up, and I don't know if all of these people are paid or not, but they're still showing up. Why? Why are these people showing up? They're freaking, they're mentally, they're morons. Let's just put it that way. They're just morons. They haven't figured out the way the real world works yet. And either that or maybe they went there for some free, how the timeshares, I bet it was something to do like this, how the timeshares suck you in by saying, hey, if you come and listen to an hour presentation or 2-hour presentation, we'll give you a gift card for $50. And people are like, hey, I can sit there for $50. Sure. I got no problem with that. And they're going there and sitting there and I'm not saying they're doing that. Please don't. That's a joke. It's a joke. Okay. It's a joke. Anyway. One thing that the left can't quite figure out, by the way, is the left can't figure out that equal applies to opportunities, not to the outcome, folks. Okay. Michael Dorschwitz. Yeah, I can't pronounce his name. Dorstewitz, Dorstwitz, I think. Anyway, he wrote an opinion article in Newsmax. And he basically kind of talks about the fact that, people today talk about gay rights, women's rights, transgender rights, Black Hispanic rights. It's as though one particular group believes that it has more rights or is more superior than to the rest of the public at large. See, this is what I'm talking about in terms of diversity, equity, inclusion. If you want actual diversity, equity, and inclusion, treat everybody the same. No matter what their skin color is, no matter what their sex is, no matter what their sexual orientation might be. Just treat everyone the same. Now, it's not going to go that way because of the fact that so many people are still trying to push this idea of the leftist ideology. So here's an example, he writes. The U.S. Department of Justice opened a civil rights investigation into a program that was operated by the Rhode Island Foundation, in which recently hired teachers can get up to $25,000 in student loan debt relief. But white teachers need not apply. Again, there's your diversity, equity, inclusion as far as the left is concerned. Okay. So Providence, Rhode Island public school teachers, according to the piece, received this benefit through what's called the Educator of Color Loan Forgiveness Program. I thought we wanted to end discrimination. I thought we wanted to end the idea that one race or one color is placed above the rest. I thought that was the whole point of all this. Okay, side note, just because my rumblers are doing this. He's not coming back, folks. He can't. He's gone. Anyway, so there you go. They were talking about the troll that we had last night. They thought that maybe he could come back, but he can't. He's gone. I kicked him. Gone. He's out. Anyway, so the Justice Department, of course, didn't just happen to stumble onto the program. Legal Insurrection Foundation, known as LIF, and the LIF's Equal Protection Project, EPP, they were founded by Cornell Law School professor William A. Jacobson, and the LIF filed a civil rights complaint against Providence Public School District on the 14th of 2022, and the DOJ is just now, gee, I wonder why, just now agreeing to act upon it. It's been almost 2.5 years since they filed the case, according to Jacobson, what he told Fox News Digital. He goes, "We followed up with them repeatedly. We couldn't get the Biden administration to do anything to stop this." Well, of course you couldn't, because that's what they want. That's what they want. Okay? Anyway. Finally, apparently, the new Trump administration under the Department of Justice Civil Rights Office has finally brought in some action on this. Jacobson, of course, said that they were extremely thankful that the DOJ was taking action because the case had really no other place to go. Okay? The Rhode Island Attorney General didn't even bother bringing the suit. He could have, though. He or she could have. There's Rhode Island laws that are being violated, but nothing was done. And see, this is what I'm talking about here. Okay? This is what I'm talking about here. Because these people are not just going to go away overnight. We may have knocked them down, folks, but we're going to have to keep going after them and keep finding them. They're sort of like cockroaches. They run away when the light turns on, but believe me, they're still hiding in the cracks and the shadows, waiting for that light to turn off. And so all we have to do is protect ourselves by not stopping. We need to continue. Take our wins when we get them, and celebrate those wins, yes. But don't ever forget that the next battle is right around the corner for these people. Okay? They will continue to try and push their agenda in our faces. They're going to. Anyway, Jacobson said that the political infrastructure in the state of Rhode Island unfortunately insulates powerful political and economic players from the rules that everyone else has to abide by. Now, this Rhode Island case, according to the piece, is by no means the only one. So last year alone, the Equal Protection Project has filed civil rights complaints on the basis of race, color, national origin, and/or sex against all of these different places. Grand Valley State University of Michigan, 4 Pennsylvania-based universities, Dominican University of Illinois, Alfred University of New York, University of San Diego, University of New Mexico, University of Oregon, no surprise there, Calvin University of Michigan, institutional member of colleges of the North Star Collective that are all located in the New England region, and Indiana University South Bend. The Equal Protection Project has also fired numerous amicus curiae, friend of the court briefs, in support of other plaintiffs who have filed civil rights actions. The thing that we have to remember, folks, is that our country was founded on the principles of liberty and equality. Notice I didn't say equity, I said equality. So many people quote the phrase that's in the Declaration of Independence that says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal." That was enshrined further in the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, which was ratified in 1868, which reads, "Nor shall any state deny or to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of laws." Civil rights legislation, this piece continues, was approved and signed into law in the mid-1960s, which further guaranteed that equal treatment in facilities was the law of the land. We have slid away. We drifted a bit away from the principle of equal treatment in 1978 when the U.S. Supreme Court upheld affirmative action, permitting race to be one of the several factors used in setting college admissions policies. But 2 years ago, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down affirmative action, both in public and private universities. We're still having to deal with that fallout, by the way. What Americans need to understand, what all of you understand, but what the Democrats don't seem to understand, is that equal means equal for everyone. One standard, one rule applied across the board equally is what it's for. They need to understand man, woman, black, white, straight, gay, whatever. Equal means equal. And equal, by the way, is equal opportunity. What you do with that opportunity is up to you as an American. It is up to you as an enterprising individual to use that opportunity to the best of your ability, to do with it what you can, to find your strengths, acknowledge your weaknesses, and turn your life into something incredible. That's what the American dream is all about. That's what America was founded upon. For you to come here, for a immigrant to come here, for anyone to come here to this great country and turn your life into something amazing, because you all have the same opportunity to make something of yourselves, not being put down by any immutable characteristics such as your race, your color, your creed, your origin. That everyone has the same opportunity here in the United States to make something of themselves. If you want to work hard and turn yourself into a billionaire, and you have the skill set and the ability to do so, go for it. That's what the American dream is all about. You want to stay home and have, several kids and create yourself a brood, or maybe farm a property, or whatever your dream happens to be. That's what America is all about. And that's what the point is. And the left, unfortunately, still doesn't get it. They're still pushing the idea that you need programs. You still need the big brother of the government to stand over you and tell you what to do. No, they don't. No, they don't. Well, one university, another, in this case, has one university has decided to gut DEI programs. And this is actually a good thing, folks. Here in the Epoch Times, the University of Michigan decides to gut its DEI programs. And it's been estimated that the university itself has spent nearly $250 million on DEI programs since 2016. Okay? The University of Michigan, according to the article, it will eliminate all diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts following the Trump administration's warning that colleges with discriminative policies could lose federal funding. Changes were announced Thursday, and they include shutting down 2 diversity offices, ending its DEI 2.0 strategic plan. And this follows earlier steps to phase out DEI-related requirements, such as removing mandatory DEI statements in admissions, hiring, promotions, awards, and performance reviews. The university said individuals who previously worked on DEI initiatives across various schools, colleges, and departments will now refocus their full effort on their core responsibilities. Yeah. So, there you go. Anyway. We're moving forward here, people. We're moving forward. But we still have, again, they're down, but they're not out. We still have people who are fighting against things like the Constitution and the principles of Americanism and American policies and principles and values. One example of this in particular, there was a Tennessee Democratic lawmaker who essentially was in front of the Tennessee House Criminal Justice Subcommittee, and it was a hearing on the essentially a gun control measure, House Bill 1392, and by House I mean Tennessee House bill, and it flopped spectacularly. So this gentleman, he's a radical left state representative. His name's Justin Pearson. He's from Memphis. And apparently he was very adamant about what was going on. So his gun-grabbing bill, this is how the Populist phrases it, his gun-grabbing bill intended to repeal the state's permitless carry that enables Tennesseans to exercise their God-given right to self-defense without requiring a permission slip from the federal government, or from the state government, I should say. Now, all of these Democrats, okay, every single one of them, they all tried to use the tragic and horrific events that occur with firearms. Now, keep in mind, the vast majority of firearms-related deaths are self-inflicted. Then come the criminal behaviors of others. And of course, whenever they do some kind of gun grabbing, they always point to the scary black rifle when it actually is handguns that are doing more than any other in terms of death. But see, Democrats, they ignore facts because they are looking for one particular thing, and that is to eliminate firearms altogether. Well, this gentleman was putting forth an impassioned plea. And I've got a bit of video for you. The actual video clip is 5 minutes and 29 seconds long. I am not going to play the entire thing. But I want you to listen to his beginning plea when he's got this put forward, okay? And when he puts this forward to the subcommittee and he's arguing in terms of trying to get it passed, and he does this, again, the fallacy argument of employing a plea on the emotional side when it has to be, when you're dealing with stuff like this, you have to look at it without the emotions involved. So anyway, let me go ahead and play the first part of this.
The Tennessee House of Representatives. It is a pathetic excuse for you to not answer the question of why we are doing nothing about the gun violence epidemic than to personally attack me. But let me explain to you what I have been doing, Representative, since you asked. My brother, Temperance Darnell Pearson, one of the loves of my life, passed away from gun suicide on December 1st of 2024.
Okay, so just going to say this. Notice what he did there. He started off talking about gun violence, And now he's turned it into a personal plea because his brother decided, tragically, to end his own life by using the gun as a tool. So here we go.
And since that happened, it shattered my family like gun violence has shattered so many families. Shattered my nephew's lives, my mother, my father, my other brothers who are remaining. I buried my brother. I planned for his entire funeral. My fiance made his obituary. I made sure that he was taken care of, even in death. That's what I've been doing. But also...
Okay, so he is basically trying to equate gun violence, which is a bit of an epidemic, but only a symptom of the actual disease. The disease that is the problem is the mental health of our country, okay? But he is looking at only the symptom, and he is trying to attack the tool of the problem, not the actual problem itself. So let's continue and listen.
Also, not just that, I went to all of my nephew's schools. I met with their principals and their teachers to ensure that they are okay. I gave them and made sure that they had grief counseling and that they're seeing a psychiatrist. That's what I've been doing. And while you're talking about hard work, you need to realize that our job is not just in this state house with these marble floors. Our jobs are on the streets and in the communities that we serve. And so while you've been here passing bills that have been hurting transgender children, while you've been here passing bills that have been hurting the poor, hurting the marginalized, hurting the...
And yet he sits there and takes the entire argument that he's trying to make and turns it into a plea for all kinds of things that potentially government really has no business in, at least as far as the federal government is concerned. Well, to kind of cut this a little shorter here, his bill failed. It failed miserably, okay? But what does he do as a part of that failure? What does he do as a part of the failure of that, of the vote? Okay. Well, I'm about to show you as soon as I can get to a point where I can. All right. So the House or the subcommittee has just kind of had a vote. So we're going to pick up where that is.
We are now voting to send House Bill 1392 on to full judiciary.
So they're voting right now.
Does anyone wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 2 ayes, 7 nays.
So 7 nays. Now hold up. So they had 9 people on that committee. They had 2 that agreed to send the bill, this gentleman's bill, off to the General Assembly for vote. It failed miserably. 2 ayes, 7 nays. So what does this guy do? Well, if you're watching the video, you can see he goes over and is essentially getting in the face of a individual who has been identified as a Republican and is going after him because of, being violent against other people is going to bring you to or bring them to your side of the aisle rather than persuasive arguments. Yeah. Anyway, here we go.
No, sir. No, sir.
So he's sitting there getting in this guy's face. The guy's trying to basically ignore him. And yeah, again, yeah, that's really, I mean, no offense, but all of that language, all of that getting in the guy's face, all of that stuff is going to give people the incentive to get on your side. I mean, it's this kind of breakdown in societal values that brings people to understand that we need to have weapons. I mean, seriously. I honestly, I don't understand where these leftists seem to think that just because their argument, now, I don't know what the argument was necessarily about. I don't know if it had something to do with the comments that the gentleman was making prior to the vote. I'm not exactly sure. But, and the piece doesn't really explain it very well. But the whole point here is that Pearson, who is the gentleman who was advocating for the bill, he lunged at the other gentleman who was named Farmer, pointing a finger at him and talking over him while the Republican lawmaker avoided eye contact. Other lawmakers rushed in and pulled Pearson away, preventing what could have been an ugly scene. Now, why Pearson was walking away, calling Farmer a son of a, well, you know, but he was like, "Don't you ever come at me and my family." Come at him. What is he doing? What is he doing? I mean, seriously, you know. Anyway, so Pearson apparently appeared on Fox 13 and said that Representative Farmer was very disrespectful and dismissive of his family's pain and heartache. Yeah, that still doesn't justify going after him. And it's stuff like this that makes people realistically, it's things like illegal aliens crossing the border and being let into the country. And just left and criminals getting slaps on the wrist and things like that. You are not going to win the arguments if you're continuing to go down this path of using violence to try and get what you're looking for. Now, Farmer also told news outlets in a statement that he sympathizes with Pearson due to his loss. Look, I sympathize with anyone who has lost someone as a result of an accident. I personally know of somebody here that was lost because of an accidental discharge of a firearm. And yes, it was an accidental discharge of a firearm. However, that doesn't mean that the family, and believe me, that particular family was a very big advocate for the Second Amendment. And they haven't changed, as far as I know, they haven't changed their opinion or their position on that. They haven't changed their position dealing with the Second Amendment here. The Second Amendment was written for a specific reason, and that is to make sure that people have the right to self-defense and self-protection, not only from the criminal element, but also from our very own government. Because those same people who wrote that the first 10 amendments, okay, those same people are the ones that had just liberated a country from an oppressive regime. So, anyway. But they continue. And they continue to take the fight into our federal courts. They continue to utilize the judiciary as a weapon against Americans and the American principles of government. Now, I argue that the voice of America has nothing to do, and I know this is kind of an interesting segue, but I'll argue that the voice of America has nothing to do with the federal government's responsibilities as outlined in the Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, and that it should actually be shut down. Well, once again, the judiciary oversteps its bounds. A federal judge has now issued a court order preventing the Trump administration from shuttering Voice of America for now. Like I said, they are down, meaning the left. They are down, but they are far from being out of the fight. They're still here. They're still making inroads. So this federal judge temporarily blocked the Trump administration from dismantling Voice of America, which is the government-funded international news service whose 1,200 reporters and employees were placed on leave earlier this month. Folks, this judge, he's from the Southern District of New York. On Friday, that was yesterday, he issued a temporary restraining order in favor of VOA employees and their unions. The order prevents the U.S. Agency for Global Media, which again, I argue, is not part of the federal government's job. It's not in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, and I'm going to continue to push that until people start actually reading it and understanding that all of this stuff that we have seen, all of this stuff that Doge is going after, all of this stuff that you think is, proper, it's not. It's not even a part of our Constitution. We need to get back to the Constitution as its base. We need to get the federal government back within the boundaries that the Constitution has been and was supposed to have kept the government within. Now, the VOA employees filed a lawsuit against USAGM, its acting director, Victor Morales, and the special advisor, Carrie Lake, on March 21st. The complaint accused the agency of failing to fulfill its legally mandated missions, violating both press freedom and separation of powers doctrine. Okay, wait a minute, hold up. Press freedom and separation of powers. Press freedom. The freedom of the press means that the federal government can't interfere with the press. Historically speaking, the idea of the free press was to act as the fourth wall to protect and push back on an overarching and overreaching government. The very idea that the government would have and fund control of a press outlet was abhorrent to the founding fathers. In their mindset, the press was on the opposite side of the government, was a check and a balance for the American people because of the fact that the redcoats came in and tried to stifle the rebellion and the rebellious writings of many of the founding fathers. The very idea that the government is funding not only Voice of America, but NPR and what's the other one? PBS. The very idea that those organizations exist would be totally foreign to our founding fathers. They'd be like, why? Why does the government need media outlets such as this? They don't. And yes, buddy, my favorite, one of my favorites, I have a lot of favorites on the amendment size, but buddy, of course, calls out the 10th Amendment. Yep. Anyway. So anyway, the judge in his ruling for the temporary restraining order stated that the Voice of America was likely to succeed on its claims, noting that USAGM's actions appeared unconstitutional. I would like to know from Oetken, I'm going to call him Oetken, I would like to know that whether or not, or where, somewhere in the Constitution, it states that the government is supposed to be the press. Anyway, he said that Carrie Lake lacked legal authority to withhold congressionally appropriated funds or terminate USAGM staff, programming, or contracts. He stated or wrote that by withholding the funds statutorily appropriated to fully administer USAGM, VOA, and its affiliates, the executive is usurping Congress's power of the purse and its legislative supremacy. So now the judge, of course, did not require the VOA to resume its broadcast, but made it clear that employees must not be terminated while the court determines whether the shutdown violates the Constitution or other federal administrative laws. Again, I challenge this judge along with any of those other judges. Where in the Constitution does it state that this law created by Congress is even a part of Congress's purview. That's what I want to know. That's what I want to know. And of course, they're not going to tell us. Well, the interesting thing about the federal court system is while one federal judge says, yeah, you can't, we have the appeals process. And the appeals process, at least in this case, is allowing DOGE to continue to downsize the USAID. So a new ruling has suspended the Maryland federal judge's order to block the Trump administration's efforts to cut down USAID. Federal Appeals Court on March 28th, that was again yesterday, put a hold on a lower court order that blocked efforts led by the Department of Government Efficiency to downsize the U.S. Agency for International Development. And once again, I go back to the whole point. The whole point of the USAID was to spend federal tax dollars on foreign countries. I would challenge anyone to please open up your Constitution and tell me under what heading or what title, what paragraph in Article 1, Section 8 does this apply? Please. It's all I want to know. Okay? Anyway, the U.S. Court of Appeals of the Fourth Circuit issued an order around the close of business yesterday stating that the preliminary injunction filed on March 18th by Maryland-based U.S. District Judge Theodore Chwang, yeah, anyway, hereby stayed pending the resolution of this appeal. In the new order, Judge Marvin Quantelbaum, that's a hell of a name, Jr., wrote that the Richmond, Virginia-based appeals court was granting the motion to block the lower court's order because it is in the public interest. Judge wrote that tech billionaire and advisor to the president, Elon Musk, and DOGE demonstrated they will likely prevail on the merits when the case is heard, and that they would be irreparably injured absent the stay. Quattlebaum also wrote that the 26 current and former employees or contractors of USAID who brought the lawsuit against Musk and DOGE will not be injured because of the stay. So, yeah, there you go. Anyway, again, it's, he also said that the activities of DOGE and its leader, Musk, related to USAID are not conventional, but yet unconventional does not necessarily equal unconstitutional. Well, at least this guy's smart enough to understand it. Because this does not mean that those who sued will not be able to develop evidence of unconstitutional conduct as the case progresses, he also wrote. Time will tell. Our holding is merely that at this time, the record does not support the district court's finding of a likelihood of constitutional violations. So we have one that changed, one that didn't, so on and so forth. Well, all right, I'm going to take a quick break here for just a second. And I want to talk to you for a second about 1775 coffee. Oh. What happened there? Anyway. Okay. I want to talk to you about 1775 coffee. Weak coffee is for the weak, and at Rumble, weak has never been part of the mission. No fillers, no fraud, and no settling for mediocrity, just like 1775 coffee. It's single origin farm, small farm, hand-picked specialty grade coffee that stands for quality, free speech, and calling out BS when it matters. Forget stale, mass-produced beans, roasted just enough to hide the flaws. Their dark roast hits like a Trump tariff. Their medium roast keeps it bold without the bitterness. And the Vitality Mushroom Blend, real energy and lasting focus with no synthetic garbage. I gotta tell you, I change depending upon my mood. Sometimes I do a dark roast coffee. Sometimes I do a medium roast coffee. But whatever it is, my coffee definitely has to be strong. Can't be weak, okay? For K-Cup pods, whole bean, or fresh ground coffee, go to 1775coffee.com. That's 1775coffee, all one word, .com. Use promo code STUDIO for 15% off and start your morning with coffee that stands for something. That's 1775coffee.com. Use promo code STUDIO for 15% off your order. Once again, that's 1775coffee, all one word, .com, and use promo code STUDIO to get 15% off your order of K-Cup pods, whole beans, or fresh ground coffee. Start your morning with coffee that actually stands for something. That's 1775coffee.com. Oh, and by the way, every single dollar spent enters you to win a Cybertruck and $30,000 in cash. Go to 1775coffee.com and get your coffee today. All right. Well, the judiciary is very important, not only at the federal level, but also at the state level. And we have a Supreme Court race that's coming up on Tuesday in Wisconsin that could, some say, make or break the Badger State. So on Tuesday, Wisconsin voters are going to go to the polls to elect a Supreme Court justice. The reason why it's happening, the reason why it's happening is Justice Ann Walsh Bradley is retiring. And because of that, you have two candidates. You have Susan Crawford and Brad Schmiel. Hope I pronounced that correctly. But here's the thing. While that position is supposed to be nonpartisan, it is clear that Susan Crawford is being backed completely by the Democrats, and Schmiel is held up by the Republicans. Okay? Now, spending is going absolutely out of control. Even Elon Musk has gotten involved with this. Crawford herself has raised $21 million versus Schmel's $10 million. But the real story on all of this is how much the satellite groups are spending, $80 million to date. According to Ballotpedia, it's the most expensive judicial race in U.S. history. Okay? Currently, liberal justices hold a 4-3 majority on the court. A win by Schmiel would flip that balance. With issues like the state's abortion laws, union rules, redistricting, and cases involving basic law and order potentially coming before the court in the coming months and years, another liberal justice would be a disaster for the state and allow the crazies on the left to gain ground. Folks, this is what I'm talking about here in terms of we can't let up. They are going to continue. And in this particular case, think about this. If the redistricting cases that are cases that are coming up in front of this court get won by the Democrats, that means that they gerrymander and redistrict and potentially gain seats in the House. The Republicans hold a slim majority there. So we need to make sure, okay, we need to make sure that places like this, when we have opportunities like this, that we need to go and do our best to make sure that the proper person wins. Okay? Now, former Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker told town hall media reporters on Friday, quote, "This will determine the future of things like Act 10. Now, Act 10 limits collective bargaining rights for public employees. He continued and said, But far beyond that, voter ID would probably be gone. Susan Crawford, actually, when she ran for judge in Dane County, talked about it being draconian and a form of poll tax. He also noted that Crawford had been an attorney for Planned Parenthood. So it's very likely, they'll throw out pro-life protections. She'll end concealed carry, or even in the first in the nation school voucher program out of Milwaukee. Crawford, who is also a judge on the Dane County Circuit Court, is soft on crime, reportedly. She sentenced the child rapist to only 4 years in prison, and he was back on the streets in 2. Now, juxtapose that with Schmel, who is a Waukesha County Circuit Court judge. He was a state attorney general from 2015 to 2019. He said that currently there is no check on this new liberal Supreme Court majority. The only check on them is to take back the majority by winning in 2025. Heavy hitters have entered into the fray, including President Donald Trump, who has given his support to Schmel. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Schmel has campaigned with Donald Trump Jr. Salem media podcaster Charlie Kirk. And on Friday, again, like I said, Elon Musk announced on Sunday night, I will give a talk in Wisconsin to clarify a previous post. Entrance is limited to those who have signed the petition on opposition to activist judges. I will also hand over checks for $1 million to 2 people to be spokesman for the petition. So there you go. Susan Walker. Who's Walker? Hold on. I lost where I was. Walker. Anyway. Yeah. So, Crawford apparently is running around campaigning with Bernie Sanders and a transgender activist, apparently trying to replicate Kamala Harris's playbook, which we know failed. Crawford also has the support of Barack Obama, who posted on X, if you live in Wisconsin or have friends or family who do, there is an important Supreme Court race happening right now. There's only one candidate ready to protect the fundamental rights and freedoms of Wisconsinites, and that's Judge Susan Crawford. And he urged Democrats to vote early. So, anyway, yeah. We can't afford to let these things go. And by the way, the Wisconsin Supreme Court candidate of Susan Crawford has apparently been caught red-handed making false claims, such that the Fair Elections Wisconsin, which is a grassroots election integrity organization, has sent a cease and desist letter to her demanding that she stop making false claims about Brad Schmel. The letter, which is dated March 7th of 2025, accuses Crawford of violating Wisconsin's Judicial Code of Conduct by spreading misleading statements during her campaign. The cease and desist letter sent by few President Justin Gavery claims that Crawford has made multiple false statements about Schmel's record as Wisconsin's Attorney General, particularly regarding the handling of rape kits and abortion laws. Gavery states that Crawford's actions are a violation of Wisconsin's Code of Judicial Conduct, which prohibits judicial candidates from making false or misleading statements about their opponents. Gavy's letter reads, judicial candidates, including incumbents and challengers, must refrain from making false, misleading, or deceptive statements. As though you really expected somebody on the Democrat side of the aisle to actually play by the rules. I mean, seriously. Anyway. Well, Doge had a fantastic interview with Bret Baier. And to be honest with you, I wish that this had come out fairly early, to be honest with you, in comparison to with all of the Doge stuff that's going on. It really would have been helpful to like raise their public profile in terms of what they were doing. But several of the staff, and Elon Musk himself was there. Several of the staff revealed a bunch of interesting federal practices. This, according to the Federalist, 6 unbelievably scammy federal practices Doge staff reveal in a Fox interview. Now, here's the first. Nearly $1 billion for a survey for no reason. So Musk apparently told Bear that the federal government was paying nearly $1 billion for an online national park survey. It resulted in absolutely zero changes or other outcomes as a result of giving the survey. He said that the survey itself should have only cost about 10 grand. Doge found 15 million fraudulent Social Security numbers. So Doge's Steve Davis told Bear that more than 15 million Social Security numbers are older than the 120 yet marked in the system as alive. Wow, these people have the longevity. They must be living forever. They may be immortal. But anyway, the oldest known living American is 114, Musk noted, meaning that those 15 million Social Security numbers are being used potentially for fraud. They called out the fact that more credit cards are out there than federal employees. Tom Krause, who is a former CFO of a large tech company, called the federal government's financial management practices alarming. He said there's $500 billion of fraud every year. There's hundreds of billions of dollars of improper payments, and we can't pass an audit. He said, if I were a public company CFO, I would effectively be removed. Yeah. Federal agencies apparently control some $4.6 million credit cards, which is almost 2 credit cards for every single one of the 2.3 federal employees. 2.3 million federal employees, Davis said. He said, quote, there should not be more of the credit cards than there are people. I mean, seriously. So apparently, Doge has eliminated some 300,000 of those 4.6 million federal credit cards at this point. Musk noted that if a commercial company operated the way that the federal government does, it would immediately go bankrupt. It would be delisted on the stock exchange and the officers would be arrested. We've already known this. Oh, they uncovered the whole 9-month wait to retire via paperwork filed underground. I think we've talked about this. There's a actual vault, underground vault in an old salt mine that they apparently, when you retire, you have to wait for 9 months for your package to be processed by these people that are essentially in a cave that have 22,000 filing cabinets housing over 400 million pieces of paper. Talk about an antiquated filing system. Holy crap. Oh, anyway, Airbnb billionaire Joe Gebbia described this and said that it is an injustice to civil servants who are subjected to these processes that are older than the age of half the people watching your show tonight. He noted that federal workers need to get special training just to get through the retirement process. Most private sector workers can retire whenever they're ready. Oh, this one doesn't surprise me any because I've seen some of this. 700 different IT systems just at one singular federal agency. So apparently the National Institute for Health has set over 700 different software systems that don't talk to each other. Really? It's overseen by, listen to this, 27 different chief information officers. Most of those aren't even technicians. Well, now, let's be honest. A chief information officer doesn't necessarily need to be a technician, but they need to at least understand some of the technical stuff that goes on. But anyway, former Morgan Stanley banker Anthony Armstrong noted that the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has some 40 separate communications offices. And he noted also that that's not unusual. The IRS by itself has 1,400 people whose entire job is to supply IRS hires with a company laptop and a phone. If these employees merely supply 2 IRS employees per day, they could resupply the entire IRS with brand new phones and laptops nearly every single month, he noted. So, again, that's a lot of people doing a very small job. And they also found $600 million in federal loans that are going to kids and dead people. So the federal government had on its books $300 million in small business loans to people under the age of 11, and more than $300 million to people older than 120. Okay, so here's the thing I have to ask once again: where does the federal government get? Where does the federal government get the idea that in the Constitution, in Article 1, Section 8, that they have the right to utilize federal taxpayer dollars to give federal loans? I don't recall anywhere in the Constitution saying that the federal government is supposed to act like a bank. Yes, it has control of the money to be able to print money, but that doesn't mean that it's a bank. I'm trying to understand where all of this is coming from. You can watch the entire interview if you follow the link in my show notes to this Federalist article. There's a X post of Brett Baers that has the entire interview if you really want to watch it. But yeah, this, again, all of this stuff that they're finding, I'm going to be honest with you, really boils down to one thing: an overreach and overgrowth of federal government outside of the purview of the Constitution of the United States. That's essentially where we're at, people. Now, this doesn't even remotely stop. It really doesn't. It doesn't stop, because we have found some more potential misuse of government funds. This in PJ Media, you won't believe what insanity the Health and Human Services was actually funding. So, by the way, did you want your taxpayer dollars, and this is in the piece, do you want your taxpayer dollars funding studies on preventing pregnancy in transgender boys? I mean, seriously. Do you want to have taxpayer dollars funding studies on HIV stigma in Thailand? Seriously, what does that have to do with American taxpayer dollars and American functioning of government? Really? What the hell? So Trump's Health and Human Services Secretary and Doge have uncovered even more billions of dollars in egregious waste and fraud. Apparently, there was a previously unknown agency whose employees lived like kings. I didn't talk about that on this program, but apparently they walked into the offices and they were like furnished luxuriously. But now HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy is looking to streamline the massively unwieldy, unconstitutional, and harmful federal healthcare agencies. So, first reported on Fox News, the woke HHS grants included one for over $5 million to study harnessing the power of text messaging to reduce HIV incidences in adult males across the United States. Wait, seriously? $5 million to study how to harness the power of text messaging. Really? There was also a Stanford University study of the sex hormone effects on neurodevelopment, controlled puberty in transgender adolescents. And that received over $3.6 million from the HHS. You do realize that transgenderism is in like less than 2% of the population? Where the heck did that one? Anyway, there was a whopping 61 grants from an HHS subsidiary, NIH, that went to California for DEI and gender studies that were also slashed. The scale of federal fraud and waste is so vast and it's difficult to comprehend. Yeah. Seriously. I mean, come on. The University of California supposedly had of San Francisco had a $2,554,402 grant for, quote, structural racism and discrimination in older men's health inequities. Huh? What? So apparently, according to the piece here, altogether hundreds of NIH grants on gender DEI topics have already been canceled, including research on multi-level and multi-dimensional structural racism. What? Also, other things that have been canceled is gender-affirming hormone therapy in mice. We've already talked about that. Anyway, microaggressions. Yeah, really. Oh, and of course, Kennedy has already announced the reduction of some 20,000 HHS employees. Multiples of HHS's subsidiary departments and agencies will be merging into a new organization called the Administration for Healthy America, or AHA. So imagine that healthcare agencies are actually working to make people healthy rather than, ruining lives with their disastrous COVID-19 lockdowns and vaccine mandates and studies on transgender mice and so on and so forth. I mean, seriously, the fraud, waste, and abuse in our government right now is just off the charts. And this is exactly why the Democrats, in particular, the lunatic left and what would be considered the deep state, is digging a hole so big trying to keep people from finding out all of this stuff. I'm telling you, that $36+ trillion debt that we have, yeah, it's likely going to be shrinking here after the next 4 years and hopefully beyond. Well, hey, I caught this news article, and it just reminded me of the idea that some people think that we still have privacy in this country. We honestly don't. And as I've told you multiple times, whenever you do things and go to certain things, like, for an example, social media, and even me right now, you are my product. My watchers and listeners are what I basically sell, quote unquote, to others. Your time is what I provide to sponsors. I basically tell people that's how this whole system works, is however much you guys watch is how much I am allowed to be able to get paid for all of this. Well, whenever you hand over information to a company, regardless of what it is that you are using, and regardless of whether or not they say, hey, we're never going to use this for anything, you can possibly run into situations like what this company is doing. This in Yahoo News. As I walk out, the DNA testing company 23andMe is filing or has filed for bankruptcy. It also has won a court approval to sell all of its data. That's right. They've won court approval to allow that has now allowed the company to be able to sell your data, your genetic data, to someone. Seriously. Just sit on that for just a second. Just think about that for just a second. You sent your genetic code off to 23andMe to compare and find out what your genetic makeup actually is, whether it's, Eastern European, Western European, whatever, even whatever it is. And in Folksahonis's case, she found out she was only 1/1024th Native American. But you send it off there thinking that, hey, everything's going to be copacetic and fine. Those people will never sell it, never give it away. Yeah. They are looking to win or to get money back so that they can, that the effect of their bankruptcy is going to be less. So California's Attorney General is urging consumers to go in and delete their genetic data from their 23andMe accounts. So they announced on Sunday that it filed for bankruptcy due to a low demand for its ancestry kits, and also after a 2023 data breach damaged its reputation. The company, which has over 15 million customers worldwide, said it voluntarily filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy to facilitate a sale process to maximize the value of its business. They received permission from a judge to try and sell its most valuable asset. Customer DNA, according to Bloomberg. So they originally set a deadline of May 7th for potential buyers to submit final offers, but a U.S. bankruptcy judge, Brian Walsh, wanted to allow creditors more time to analyze the deal before making a final decision and ordered a 2-week extension at the company's first bankruptcy hearing in St. Louis this week. 23andMe agreed to delay the final court hearing from June 2nd to June 17th. Now, where was I at here? The direct consumer company has customers submit a saliva sample for their DNA to be analyzed either for ancestry purposes, family traits, or possible potential health risks. Part of the reason for the company's decline in its earnings is due to waning interest in the testing kit. Okay. So in 2023, hackers apparently gained access to personal information from roughly 14,000 user accounts over a span of 5 months that appeared to target Jewish and Chinese users. Interesting. Which alarmed customers and heightened concern about the privacy of their data. So they settled that lawsuit in December of 2024 and agreed to establish a $30 million fund for cash payments and 3 years of security monitoring for affected customers. So, yeah. Now, they claim, by the way, that there's no changes to the way the company stores, manages, or protects customer data. And people are asking why 23andMe's data isn't protected under HIPAA laws, which is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. Well, HIPAA only protects that type of information when it's provided to an entity like a hospital or physician healthcare plans or billing companies that conduct business with them. 23andMe isn't subjected to HIPAA. Okay? And because of the fact that it's a direct-to-consumer company outside of the healthcare realm. People are treated as a consumer rather than a patient. So if the data from the company is sold, so if your data from the company is sold, a person's genetic information could be used to their or a relative's detriment. For example, Mason Marks, a visiting professor at the Harvard Law School, told Consumer Reports that a worst-case scenario could be that an employer or insurance company might find you have a predisposition to develop early-onset Alzheimer's, cancer, mental illness, or a substance use disorder, and discriminate against you based on that. So the question is whether or not the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act of 2008 would prohibit it. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to that it couldn't happen. So, yeah. Your best bet, by the way, is to go in and just delete it. But even then, it's not even going to necessarily stop everything. So, yeah. You've done 23andMe, man. I'd just go ahead and do it. Even just trying a little bit is better than doing nothing. All right, folks, that is it for me for this evening. No question of the week. Never got one. So, do me a favor. If you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It's free. And if you do sign up and sign in, make sure you search up the American Perspective channel. Press that green follow button there to get notified every time I go live. Also, too, don't forget to hit those thumbs up on your way out. Thumbs up and like buttons on all of my platforms, whether it's X, YouTube, Facebook, and, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you on Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your weekend, and good night, everybody.